So what Sandy did was go through the rights, and you might ask yourself, where did y'all get that list from? Are those all the rights that transfer? Or is it everything I can do? Actually, those rights come right out of Florida statutes. If I can find this list. So there are other things you do when you're 18. We were talking about buying property. You could join the armed services. There are lots of things you can do when you're 18. But what we're talking about today, the list that comes out of the statutes. Now, why is that important? Why would we focus on that? And the reason why we're focusing on it today is because we want you to understand that those rights in particular, when you're talking about making decisions, there are certain things they affect your legal status. What does that mean, legal status? It means how the law looks at you in terms of making decisions. So we've got 3 different categories of your legal status. The first one's really simple. We've been talking about it all morning. You turn 18, you make your own decisions. That's what most adults fall into that category. And so the legal status is I make my own decisions. Where I go, I am responsible for what I make. I have to take the consequences for the choices I make. And that's my legal status. I sign a cell phone contract, I'm stuck for 2 years. I joined a fitness club, which I've done all of that. I've got to pay that money back, right? I signed the loan, I've got to pay it back. I am responsible. But there's some other legal statuses that you can choose or can be placed on you. So the second one, let me go back to the first one, because the second one says someone helps me make my decisions. But the truth is, even when your legal status is that you make your own decisions, people still help. That's what we're talking about, the circle of supports, right? Amelia's got the thing with shoes. I got that whole money thing too, and I rely on my husband to help me make decisions about money. You remember I told you about Eddie is back there nodding his head because he knows. So that circle of support that I have helps me make decisions. I heard one woman say one time, it was real clear to me, she certainly had the right to go buy her car. She could pick her car, buy a car, decide what car she wanted, but she didn't like that. She didn't like doing it. She didn't like dealing with the car salesman. She didn't like dealing with trying to figure out whether she should buy it from her savings or do a loan and figuring out the terms. And so she said, I am going to ask someone else to do that for me. So that's the second box. Someone helps me make decisions. Now, your legal status can change with regard to these rights. Oh, going the wrong way. If you decide that you want someone else to help you make the decision or to make the decision for you. Look at the first one, the right to manage money or property. Your legal status could be that you make all your decisions. You can get help from other people. You can get advice from other people. You can ask them questions, but ultimately you're the one making the decision. Or, like right to manage money or property, you can say, I don't want to make that decision. I want my parents to do it for me. And there's nothing wrong with that. If you turn 18 and they've been managing your bank account and you want them to continue to manage your bank account, there's nothing wrong with that. That's your choice. You've made that decision. And there are legal ways you can do it, like signing a power of attorney that gives them the ability to manage your property for you. Or you can add them to your bank account, which gives them the ability to write checks, pay bills for you. And in your materials, I think there are explanations. Let's see, what page would legal status be on? 23 and 24. And I think there's some examples of how you change your legal status. Because you turn 18, the legal status is making your own decisions. But you can change your legal status by assigning someone else to make that decision for you. Okay? What's another one? You can give someone a power of attorney. For instance, if you've got Social Security benefits. If you're getting Social Security benefits, Social Security recognizes that you can say, I'd like someone else to receive the funds and decide how they're going to be spent on my behalf. You can do that. And it can make your life easier. You just want to make sure it's someone you trust. All right? When you're giving someone else the right to make decisions for you, you want to make sure it's someone you trust. Now there's this other category. How many of you have heard of the word guardianship? Couple on this side, guardianship. Well, let me tell you what guardianship is. So, as we said, you turn 18, you get to make your own decisions, or you can choose someone to make decisions for you. But there's another category of legal status that's in the court system, and it's guardianship or guardian advocacy. Okay? And that's where a court decides which of these rights that are in the Florida law you will make decisions about, or someone else will make decisions for you. Now, why would they do that? The guardianship process is started because someone in the community thinks that you need help making your decisions. They think that maybe you can't manage your money or property, or maybe you can't decide where you should live, or whatever it may be. But anybody can bring to the court's attention through the guardianship process that you need somebody to make decisions for you. You may not agree, and the law allows you to give your opinion, to do that self-advocacy that Amelia was talking about, where you can stand up and say, no, actually, I think I can do just fine on my own or with the help of other people. But there's this whole process in guardianship where a court would listen to you, and a court would listen to someone who thinks that you need somebody to make decisions for you, and then the judge would make the decision. And what's interesting about guardianship is the judge is going to make that decision based on each one of those rights. So you could end up in a guardianship where the judge says someone else is going to manage your property, but you get to just control your social life. Or someone else is going to decide what contracts you can enter into, but you get to decide if you're going to get a job. They take each one of those rights, and that's why it's important that we review those rights. And each one of the rights we've talked about here, they're in your book. In just a moment, Amelia's going to come up and talk about a couple of them. So the court, I can't figure out my directions. The court's going to decide that someone else will make your decision. It could be a parent, it could be a family member, it could be a friend, it actually could be someone you don't even know. There are private guardians, professional guardians, and public guardians that make decisions for people once a judge says that the person needs someone to make decisions for them. After Amelia comes up, I'll talk to you about the fact that this last category doesn't have to be forever. It can be temporary, and how you can explain to a court, if your rights were taken away, that you're ready to get them back and exercise them on your own. But remember, your legal status is, and you should know your legal status. It's important that you know it. As you become an adult, for instance, someone may ask you, do you have a guardian? Are you under guardian advocacy? You need to know that. In your materials, there's a place in the back called Documents and Activities Checklist. If you are in a guardianship, the court will give you a piece of paper that explains all of that. You may want to put 3 holes in that paper and put it in your book so that you know what your legal status is. You can explain that to someone else. It'll make a big difference when you're trying to exercise those decisions. So there are a couple of things I wanted to go over that were on that test that we talked about, that Sandy gave you. There are certain rights. Help me figure out what page that's on. That even though that aren't on this list, that a court can't take away. Page 24. Court can't take away these rights at the top of 24. So even if you go through the court process, It's not on that list, so the judge is not going to be looking at those. One is to be represented by a lawyer. So whether you are making your own decisions, you let someone else, like through a power of attorney, make decisions, or guardianship, you always have the right to be represented by an attorney. You always have the right to be able to go into court. And look at number 3, to receive a proper education. That's a right you have. To be free from abuse, neglect, and exploitation. We talked about how you identify those. Did you know that you have the right to be free from those? You have the right to be as independent as possible. So the only restrictions that should be placed on you are the restrictions that are necessary, because you have a right to remain as independent as possible. You have the right to receive services that are necessary and to be treated with respect. Nobody can take away those rights. A judge can take away these, but those rights that are on the top of page 24 cannot be taken away at all. So I want you to look at these rights here and tell me which ones that you think could be given away to somebody else to manage for you, to make decisions. I gave away the first one, right? Managing property, you definitely can. Somebody else can do that. Controlling your social life. Actually, yes, you can. Someone can. The judge can say that somebody else can control your social life. What about a driver's license?
Take it away from you.
They can take it away, but they can't give it to anybody else, right? Okay? You see the difference? A judge can take it away, but they can't give it to a guardian, because a guardian can't drive for you. What else on this list can a guardian couldn't do for you? What? That's exactly right. No one else can vote for you. So a judge can say, I don't think you can vote, but then they wouldn't give that to somebody else to do for you. What about marry? Can a judge take away your right to marry? Yes, because it's on this list. Can the judge give that to somebody else? Nobody else can get married for you, right? You can't get to the altar and say, I'm gonna find you a husband, and that's who you're gonna marry. Nope, can't do that. So there are certain rights that can be taken away, but they can't be given to somebody else. All right. So, one other thing I wanted to talk about with the legal status, and then I'll let Amelia come. Which one of these options do you think gives you the most freedom?
Making your own decisions.
Absolutely, making your own decisions. So, which one is the most restrictive?
Someone else making your decisions.
Someone here who the judge has said would make your own decisions, right? That would be the most restrictive. Now, the one in the middle, and the example that I gave was a power of attorney, is kind of in the middle. It's not as independent as the first one, making your own decision, but it is not as restrictive as a judge assigning someone to make your decision. So there's a range, okay, that you want to remember when you think about your legal status. You can make your own decisions, or you could take just a step further and let somebody else make decisions for you, and you're controlling who that is. Or you can have a court step in the process and say that someone's going to make decisions, and you really don't have much say in that. You get heard, but you don't have much say in it. The judge actually decides. So Amelia's going to talk to you about developing your abilities in the areas of the rights.